So I'm Ryan Stiggy. I'm the program manager for Decarbonization. And thanks for joining us today for this update and engagement session on the community and customer work streams that are within the Pathways to Decarbonization initiative. First of all, I want to acknowledge with us today any members of the OPPD Board of Directors. So thank you for joining us and your support. And also joining us today is Mary Fisher, our Vice President of Energy Production and Nuclear Decommissioning and the program sponsor for decarbonization. Many of you have probably attended the energy portfolio workshops and are staying up to date on that project through those. And as OPPD studies the pathways to achieve net zero carbon by 2050, we're really looking beyond just our generation fleet. So that includes our non-generation assets such as buildings and vehicles, but also as well as, how can we be a partner, a leader, and an advocate for the carbon reduction goals of our customers and the communities that we serve. And that really brings us to today, where we're bringing you the work and really showcasing everything that these teams have been doing on the community and customer projects. We want to give you the opportunity to see their work, give us feedback, and ask questions, and really be part of that journey as we work through these projects. All right, so before we get too far, we start every meeting with a safety topic at OPPD, and this is no different. So let's get into that. So September just started. So this seems like a good time to talk about fall, with it being just around the corner. I, for one, enjoy summer. So when I start thinking about fall, it makes me think about winter, but we still have a few months to go. So that's good. But let's talk about a little bit of fall electrical safety. So as you're putting away your warm weather tools, make sure they're stored safely and securely, and check your cold weather tools for wear and tear, especially power cords. If there's anything you need to repair or replace, do so. One thing that starts to happen when fall gets here, your leaves are going to start falling. So if you're out there raking leaves, or maybe they've blown into your garage, or they're piling up next to the deck, just make sure those piles are staying away from anything electrical. And hopefully we have a few months before we need electric blankets. But when you get them back out, give them a good examination. Make sure they're in good condition after being stored for the summer. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Sarah, for a little more context for today's update.
Sounds good. I, for one, am excited about the fall. I am not happy with all the humidity that we've had, so I'm ready for this rain, the cooler weather, and the electric blanket. So with that, that's not a poll everywhere question about what's your favorite season, but we will have lots of engagement for you during this presentation. So just a little bit of housekeeping to kick us off. Please, OPPD staff, mute your microphones when you're not speaking and silence all electronic devices. This meeting will be recorded and we will post it on OPPD Community Connect after the fact. So if you have any friends or colleagues or contacts that would like to see this presentation but were not able to come today, we have a solution for you there. And the public attendees right now are in WebEx listen-only mode. But we will have lots of opportunities for those attendees to engage with us. There are about a dozen poll everywhere questions, and if you've been to any of our workshops before, you know how that works. And I'll kind of go through how to do that just real quick after this slide, but we will be asking you to just either type in your phone or on the computer just some question and answers throughout this presentation. We also have a WebEx Q&A tool that you'll see here. You'll be able to find that Q&A in the corner of your screen, and you can use that. We encourage attendees to use that throughout to ask clarifying questions about the content being covered. We'll do our best to get to all of those. But we'll also have a couple moments within the presentation, one after the end of the community presentation and one at the end of the customer presentation, where we will have the opportunity for our guests to raise their hand. And this is an opportunity where we'll take you off mute and give you an opportunity to verbally ask us questions about our presentation, about what we're covering. So there'll be plenty of those opportunities. So just please take note if there's something you'd like to verbally ask us, there'll be a couple times throughout this presentation to be able to do that. So with that, I am going to move on to our first poll everywhere question. Give me one moment while I flip my screen. And we just kind of want to know who's in the room, our virtual room here. We want to know if you represent any organization or yourself as a customer. If you would like to share, what's your name and who do you represent? And how you do that is you could take out your phone and text OPPD1 to 22333. You only have to do that once throughout this presentation to join, and then text us your message of who you are. And you could respond, also if you're on the computer, you could respond at pollev.com. At OPPD1. So I am going to make sure that this is activated. Is anyone typing in a response? There you are. Thank you. Someone's just representing themselves as a customer. Sally, welcome from Metro Community College. Do we have anyone else here that would like to tell us who you are? Customer, thanks for hosting this. We're really glad to have our customers on board. This is this session all about you and how we could partner together to help us reach our net carbon zero by 2050 goals. So lots of people here. Thank you for telling us who you are and welcome to the presentation. I'll just give it another moment. If it's taking someone maybe a little bit longer since this will be your first time logging in. Again, it should be fairly easy. You just text 22333 and your first text is OPPD1, and then it'll just allow you to just type right into there. So welcome Daniel, Ryan, John, Pat, welcome. Nebraskans for Solar, we're happy you're here.
Sarah, I just think it's important to note that we do questions like this based on feedback from our customers. So I think it was probably in one of our earlier decarb sessions, they said, well, we want to see who else is in this virtual room with us. And so just wanted to say that we appreciate all of you kind of virtually introducing yourself as well.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. That's a really good point. And Jamie's on the call as well. She's a member of the stakeholder outreach team, and she'll be helping monitor the question and answer. And we do try to make each one of these presentations better than the last. We'll send you a survey afterwards, and we really take all of your feedback to heart and use it to make each one of these presentations better. So thank you. Look, we're not shy anymore. Now we've got a whole bunch of people responding. So thank you everyone for responding. I'll go ahead and move on. Gosh, but they keep on coming in. We'll go ahead and switch it over so Ryan could kind of tell you a little bit more about what we have for the day, but now you kind of have a feeling of what the poll everywhere is all about. So I will get us back where we need to go next. Just one moment. I think I need like the Jeopardy song or something in the background. I'll have my little spinning wheel up on my computer. So bear with me just a minute. Next, Ryan will be telling us really about our agenda of the workshop. So
I can go ahead and talk. I remember what this agenda slide looks like, so I can talk about it while I'm trying to get up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've got the little spinny wheel, so hopefully
That's all
it'll
right.
not take forever.
It wouldn't be a virtual meeting without some technology glitch along the way. So, all right. So while we're waiting for the agenda slide to come up, I'll give you a little preview of it before it gets here. So first, we'll give you just a quick brief reminder of what the Pathways to Decarbonization Initiative is. And that includes the 4 projects that it encompasses. And then we're going to dive deeper into the 2 projects that are being presented today. So first we'll have the community workstream led by Emily Muth, and then the customer workstream led by Paul Fortney. So each of those work streams will provide an overview, an approach, and the objective for that work stream, as well as information on the framework to their analysis and what the next steps are from today. So, I said earlier, we really want to bring you, our stakeholders, along on this journey with us. And so we're coming to you today at a point in each of the projects where we've completed enough work to show you our progress, but we're at a stage where we want your comments and your questions and your suggestions. These projects aren't finished yet, and we're excited to share the progress, but we want your feedback so that we can see evaluate it and see if there are ways that we could incorporate that or use it to inform our work now or maybe in the future. So I know during the energy portfolio update last time, we presented some examples of some of the customer feedback we had received in ways that we incorporated it. And so that's kind of the similar concept here. So definitely let us know what you think, give us your comments, and we'll take it back and evaluate it.
Okay, I think I am getting there. Just bear with me one moment. I've had to do a little restart on my PowerPoint, but let's try this now and see if I got it. Let's see here.
All right, perfect.
Can you see it?
There's the agenda. So like I said, first thing, we'll give you a little overview just as a reminder so everyone remembers what the Decarb Initiative is and what work streams it really all involve. And then we'll do a little deeper dive into the 2 that are up there today, the community and the customer work stream. If you want to go to the next slide, Sarah.
Yes, just a moment. There we go. Back in business.
All right. So if you've been following along with the Energy Portfolio Workshop series, this slide's probably pretty familiar to you. But I think it's valuable to hear a little history about how we got here. So the Decarbonization Strategic Initiative was announced in 2019, and the initial focus was really on the energy portfolio. But it became clear that decarbonization was a bigger issue than just our generation fleet. So in November 2019, our board of directors revised Strategic Directive 7 around environmental stewardship to include more than just our generating assets. So that revision outlined OPPD's commitment to conducting all of our operations, including buildings and transportation, in a net zero manner, engaging our customers and stakeholders to promote energy conservation and minimize environmental impact, and to be an advocate and an educator to advance OPPD's environmental interests. So those changes, they really laid the groundwork and the direction for the Pathways to Decarbonization initiative to be broken down into the 4 projects you see in front of you. So it's really made up and designed to align with OPPD's core values and strategic directives. Today, we're going to focus on just 2 of the projects, though. And that's the community and the customer projects. And we bring them to you together because there's a lot of synergies between the 2. And I think you'll see that as Emily and Paul talk through the work that they've done. So the customer project is really aimed at how OPPD can help customers reduce their carbon footprint through products and services by identifying and prioritizing specific demand side programs. And then the community project directs OPPD efforts towards developing partnerships and leadership to our service territory communities, again, to help reduce their carbon footprint and environmental impact. So, you know, it's important to OPPD not only to focus internally on what we can do, but also to be a partner and a leader um, to our customers and those communities that we serve. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Sarah, for a question, and then Emily will get us kicked off on the community project.
Very good. Thank you. And thank you all for your patience with my little technical glitch there, but I think we're back on track. But we just kind of wanted to know, now that you've heard a little background from Ryan about, the 4 different projects within Pathways to Decarbonization. We had those 4 workshops for the energy portfolio, and we're just curious if anyone here has been to any of those workshops. So curious for our attendees, have you attended any of the other Pathways to Decarbonization energy portfolio workshops? So far, yes. Few new ones, welcome. Glad to have you here. Look, it's about, wow, it's going to be about half and half. The energy portfolio workshops were very, very technical in nature. If you are curious about those, we've had 4 of them so far. We have 2 more coming up. And the 4 that we have already are recorded and posted on oppdcommunityconnect.com. If you are interested in learning more about them, but you don't want to sit through 4 long workshops, we also have a video online. It's a summary video. It's about 22 minutes long, and it's also on OPPD Community Connect, and it summarizes all the content that we covered in those 4 workshops. So I just want to put a plug out there for that as well, if anyone's interested in catching up on the energy portfolio side. So with that, I am going to turn it back over to Emily. Just one moment. There you go. Emily, it's all yours.
Thank you, Sarah. Can everybody hear me okay? Wonderful. Well, thank you for that introduction. I'm happy to be here. My name is Emily Muth. I am the Sustainability Coordinator here at OPPD, and I also have the pleasure of leading this community decarbonization study as part of the overall Pathways to Decarbonization study. And first of all, I just want to say that OPPD is deeply committed to engagement with the communities that we serve. Customer owners are the foundation of public power, and we're honored by the continued trust that the public places in us as their energy service provider. I want to sincerely thank our board of directors for their participation and support as OPPD continues to explore, innovate, and lead in this customer engagement. So as Ryan said earlier, traditionally, OPPD's approach had really been to focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions within our operations, something that we had direct control over. So our power generation, our facilities, how we operate in our fleet. This study, conducted with HDR, really considers another vantage point. So we wanted to further demonstrate our core values of passion, honor, and care. And so we began by getting a baseline understanding of what community decarbonization efforts look like in other communities that have published plans. And then we took those efforts and prioritized them to see where OPPD could have the biggest impact. So we're going to walk through this process up to this point and let you get a little look behind what we've done so far, and then talk about next steps to position OPPD into a more sustainable future. Move to the next slide. Great, thank you. So the first step in understanding the community context is really to build a catalog of various climate action plans that were out there and published in the public domain. So to do that, you want to click to the next slide, Sarah? We selected 6 regionally relevant climate action plans, or you'll hear me talk about CAPs. And they give us that insight and perspective into community scale decarbonization. So HDR compiled a detailed catalog of these actions extracted from these 6 CAPs that you see listed here. And just for reference, MARC is the Mid-America Regional Council, which represents that Kansas City metropolitan area in Kansas City, Missouri. So interestingly enough, 4 of these 6 communities had declared a climate emergency in 2019, and we wanted to look at these that were regionally relevant, just to look at peer utilities for benchmarking. I'm going to go to the next slide, please, Sarah. So one of the interesting observations that we saw in the CAPs is that you really had a wide range of detail included. So while each CAP provides a framework to put these communities on the path to achieving their emission reduction goals, it was really just this guide to implementation that varied from a compass that was just directional to a detailed roadmap that really dug down into an equity analysis and cost comparisons. And so putting those together in a catalog and trying to get the same information out became a bit of a challenge. Next slide. One of the other observations that we saw was that there were actions and there were adaptive strategies, and these counted for about 10% of those total CAP actions. So an adaptive strategy is something that would be included like stormwater management or flood resilience, to general strategies that just enable communities to adapt to changes in the natural environment. So integrating this approach between action and adaptation allows communities to take a holistic approach, addressing both decarbonization and adaptation to the risks of climate change. Slide. So what's in this CAP catalog? Well, when you start going through and reading all of these CAPs, you see that there was over 900 specific climate actions that needed to be indexed and cataloged. And so to do that, we picked these things that are highlighted on the slide, from strategy description to cost to greenhouse gas reduction potential, and just put it in a catalog so we could search it and had some way to evaluate the data. Slide. So once that was cataloged, we could reduce that and do a comparison and analysis. And then HDR organized these climate actions into 8 consolidated categories that you see listed here, and then 27 subcategories. So for example, that energy category that you see listed, that was 11% of the CAPs that we evaluated, also included things like community scale renewables, education and engagement, smart grid and grid modernization, utility scale renewables, and distributed energy resources. So each one of these categories is further subdivided into a subcategory. And with that, I think we'll turn it back over to you, Sarah, for a little understanding check.
That's right. So we've got another poll everywhere. I'm just going to flip over to my screen. And we wanted to kind of see how your understanding would be about these climate action plans. So what do community level climate action plans have in common with OPPD's Pathways to Decarbonization initiative? Are they A, focused on reducing carbon emissions, B, encourage energy efficiency, C, focus on renewable energy, or D, all of the above? And it looks like so far we've got a bunch of people saying D, or just one person saying D. So anyone else take a moment to vote, and then I will turn it over to you, Miss Emily, to tell us what the answer is. Are all of our folks right?
Well, it looks like it, absolutely. So as we talk about different various pathways to explore decarbonization, right? Reducing carbon emissions, encouraging energy efficiency, and focusing on renewable are all included in these CAPs and are all different pathways to get to this net zero goal. So very well done.
Very good. I'll switch back to your next slide then.
Awesome. So now that we have built this catalog and we've got things categorized, we really need to draw conclusions from the catalog by understanding fundamental similarities between these actions and objectives. So to do that, we identified shared strategies. So an example would be, move to the next slide. This example 1, where you saw promote electrification of building systems and customer products. We took these 5 specific CAP actions and group them into this one consolidated category. We did that for all 928 CAP actions, and then they were consolidated back down into 66 shared decarbonization and adaptive strategies. So another example that you'll see on the next slide is recognizing and celebrating climate action leadership. Now, this is more of an adaptive strategy, right? And so you can see it focuses on climate leadership, really recognizing those efforts made in various CAPs on planning and collaboration, which leads us to another type of category that we had to evaluate, which is where we talk about actions versus enablers. And so shared strategies were further categorized as actions or enablers, separating those that emphasized what to do, so that action, versus how to make it happen, so an enabler. That enabler is going to facilitate change at scale, but it may not result in a measurable emission reduction in and of itself. So these enablers often cross CAP catalog categories, just like we see a connection to other work streams, like in the Pathways to Decarbonization study. So like the buildings category in our community work stream focuses on energy efficiency and electrification. But that's also being evaluated by the products and services team as part of the customer work stream. So as you'll see, they too recognize the impacts of enablers, and they'll talk to that later, that really facilitate that change, but don't have a measurable emission reduction. All right, Sarah, I think we're back to you.
Before we do, I'm going to interject real quick. Emily, I think you might be prepared to answer this one, and if we need to get some elaboration, we can. But we did receive a question about the searchable catalog of CAP actions, if that's going to be made available to the public, or if, in our individuals' words, if they'll have to reinvent that wheel.
Well, we hope we don't have to reinvent that wheel. So we're happy to have that conversation and see how how that information can be shared.
Great, thanks.
All right, so I will go ahead and move on to this next understanding check. So I'm going to flip my screen over. Oh, that's not it. Just move on to the next one. Which of the following is considered an enabler? Meaning the strategy facilitates change, but it may not result in the measurable emission reductions in itself. A, promote electrification of building systems. B, recognize and celebrate climate action leadership. C, adopt electrical vehicle commercial fleets. Or D, increase utility scale solar energy generation. Looks like we've got another 100% at B, Emily. Oh, and looks maybe someone's thinking about A as well. So what do we know about this, Emily?
Well, when we're looking at true enablers, we're really looking at those that there's no way we could measure an emission reduction. And we may be able to do that if we promote electrification in building systems or utility scale solar. So it's really that celebration and that recognition of climate action leadership.
Very good. Okay, I'll move back to PowerPoint. Kick it back to you, Emily.
Great. So now we have all this information. We've scaled everything down. We've got it in categories and we can take a look, but how do we evaluate it? And so the team that worked on this aligned on 3 prioritization criteria to be included in a framework. And those were degree of influence, greenhouse gas reduction potential, and co-benefits. And we'll discuss those in detail in the next slide. So the degree of influence, this is really OPPD's ability to affect change across the service territory. It's a qualitative indicator of our level of control. So everything from the work that Colton's doing in affecting how our electricity is generated to how do we influence how electricity is consumed in our communities, and where do we need to be involved in changing how electricity may be consumed in the future, to what do we just need to be aware of. Maybe it's non-energy related decarbonization strategies that we need to make sure that we're plugged in and involved. Next slide, Sarah. Our next criteria was the greenhouse gas emission reduction potential, and this was relative to one another because as we talked about earlier, some of these CAP plans didn't have the detail in them that really allowed us to have a quantitative value, so it was relative to one another, either low, medium, or high. So as you may be aware, combined transportation and electricity generation, transportation and the electricity generation sectors represent over half of the total US greenhouse gas emissions. And so the most significant greenhouse gas emission source within the building sector that we saw was fossil fuel combustion for industrial processes and steam generating and heating. So keep in mind that this study really is looking at a 30-year outlook. The customer work stream focus is more short term and looking at some opportunities today and in the next 5 years. This one is looking at a different time span as well. We will say that because there was some overlap with some of the other work streams, we did verify our results here with that energy portfolio multi-sector modeling that was done in the energy portfolio work stream. Next slide, please, Sarah. So lastly, we used the co-benefits of climate action report from the Climate Disclosure Project, or CDP, and ICLEI, which is Local Governments for Sustainability. And they listed 21 potential co-benefits of climate action. So you can see where by implementing a specific decarbonization strategy, you could potentially enhance climate change adaptation, improve resource efficiency, or even just see a shift in more sustainable behaviors. So most climate action plan strategies had at least 2 co-benefits. So when it came to evaluating the framework, we really awarded points to those that had at least 3 or more co-benefits associated with them. Which leads us to, how did these consolidated strategies really weigh out? And so taking all 3 of these criteria into consideration, we developed this prioritization framework that really stacked the degree of influence, greenhouse gas reduction potential, and co-benefits on top of all of those 66 shared decarbonization and adaptive strategies. So this is for illustrative purposes, but we'll really get into the details to come. And those top rating ones were advocating for advanced energy codes and green building standards. We also saw building energy efficiency rate really high, and those are being evaluated by the products and services team as part of that customer work. In addition, we saw strategies that focused on how electric power is being generated with an emphasis towards renewable energy, and those are being evaluated under the OPPD generation work that Colton's leading. And then supported distributed generation. And a couple more, we have accelerating the EV transition and addressing the water energy nexus. Move on to the next slide, Sarah. So other considerations when we looked at evaluating these shared strategies were implementation timeline, which is really based on technology readiness, planning requirements, regulatory factors, and community acceptance. Another consideration we took into account was target sector. So making sure that anything that we identified also covered all the different areas that we serve, from our residential customers to our large commercial and industrial. And then rural versus urban applicability, right? We have a 13 county service territory. We can't just focus on a metro or can't just focus on the rural areas. So making sure that we have strategies that fit all of our customers. So this framework gave us some insight into potential opportunities where OPPD is positioned to influence change. And so we'll be further evaluating those, but let's dive into them a little bit, shall we? So the first, as we mentioned, was advocating for advanced energy codes and green building standards. And I will say currently OPPD has many products and services and rebates to really encourage green buildings. But we'll be evaluating, are there other opportunities to get involved in the future and bringing those recommendations forward. The second was accelerating the EV transition and supported distributed generation. And those are being evaluated by that customer work stream and will continue to be evaluated as the technology develops and as there's more opportunities in this area. The fourth was addressing the energy water nexus. And that one was surprising to me. I don't know if it is to others, but when we looked at the Congressional Research Service report of Water Energy Nexus, the water sector's energy use, it said water and energy resources are reciprocally and mutually linked. Because if you think about meeting energy needs, they require water, often in large quantities. You think about mining, fuel production, hydropower, power plant cooling, and energy is then needed for pumping, treatment, and distribution of water, for the collection, treatment, and discharge of wastewater. So exploring research partnerships, maybe in advanced agriculture processes or other good water stewardship activities, could therefore reduce that water energy burden with the potential for carbon reductions or maybe even offsets. Next slide, please, Sarah. I think I turn it back to you for a series of questions to get a little feedback on what people think.
You are exactly right, Emily. So I'm going to flip it back over to my poll everywhere and just kind of talk a little bit about what Emily just said. Oops, get back there. So she just explained the 4 opportunity areas that were just discussed, and we are wondering, did that surprise you? Did the 4 opportunity areas we just discussed surprise you? And remember, they were EV transition, green building standards, distributed generation, and water energy nexus. And look, about half and half. This is interesting, Emily. I mean, you said you were even surprised by one of them, right?
Right.
So it looks like, yes, about 31% of us right now were also surprised, but 69 weren't really surprised by that result.
And that makes sense. Some of them, when you really put yourself in that community context, really stepping out of our OPPD shoes and looking from a community perspective, those are some of the areas that are really raised to the top and we hear quite a lot about.
So it's ending at
Great.
about 61% not surprised, about 63% not surprised, 37% surprised. So I'm going to switch to the next question because we're going to be talking about this just a little bit more, just to get a little bit more insight from our audience. This next question talks a little bit specifically about it and kind of wanting to know what you guys think. Which of the following are you most interested in seeing OPPD collaborate with local communities to further affect decarbonization across its service territory? And so we have each one of them listed. A is advocating for advanced energy codes and green building standards. B, accelerating the EV transition. C, supporting distributed generation. D, addressing the water energy nexus. Is there something else that's not listed here that you want us to do or that you're interested in us seeing to do, or F, none, OPPD is already doing enough? So this will be curious to see what people are saying. Lots for A, but something else is kind of rising, it's kind of right up there, 24%, huh? Does this surprise you, Emily?
I'm curious. I'm excited for our next question for the something else, but this is exciting.
Yep.
Thank you for your input.
Guess the A is kind of a strong lead, but let's move on to the next question. Emily sort of teased you with what that was, but
hey Sarah, I'm going
oh.
to interrupt you real quick before you do, just because I think it's pertinent to that topic at hand. We did have a comment with a follow-up about how OPPD could make a huge difference at the city level in Omaha and the state level, lobbying on advanced building codes and other policies to support these strategies. Is this part of the conversation in terms of actions OPPD can take to drive this transition, Emily?
Thanks for that question, Liz. You know, we're really early on in this process, and like in with other lobbying activities, we really rely on our subject matter experts. So as we address each and one of those individually, but we will continue to evaluate and look at these and see what our role can be. But this obviously points out some opportunities in this area that we will be further evaluating in our gap analysis.
Thanks so much. Sorry to interrupt, Sarah.
Oh, no problem. Glad that we're getting some engagement and Q&As in. We are almost about ready to have a hand raise opportunity as well. So just that little plug, but if we can kind of go back to your screen. And this is especially important for those people that said something else in the previous slide. We want to know what else. Are there other areas you'd like to see OPPD involved in other than what we've previously discussed? And even if you answered A, B, C, or D, this is an opportunity for a brainstorming. Like, is there anything else that you want to just put a plug in that we should be thinking about? So this is an opportunity just to have a little virtual brainstorm with us, and we'd love to see, you know, what else we should be thinking about. Calling for a regional and/or state climate resiliency plan. Very good. And just as a reminder, if you have been in your text already, you should be able to just kind of text right in there. Text OPPD1 to 22333, and then you'll be able to join in the conversation. And it looks like we're starting to get all kinds of creative and thoughtful ideas popping in there. A couple of things for on-bill financing, support a price on carbon. Something about nuclear. Keep them coming. Thank you guys for all these great ideas. I'm just gonna let this go for a bit because I just don't want people to not have an opportunity to type in their response. We'll just kind of let it go for a little bit. And I also did want to put a plug if you haven't been to OPPD Community Connect yet, like I said, this recording will be posted there, and there'll be more opportunities. If something comes to you tonight, something comes to you tomorrow, next week, you're celebrating Labor Day and something pops into your head, this isn't like the only time we're going to be taking your feedback. So you can always go on OPPD Community Connect, register there on the site. It's really easy. All we ask for is your email and a username. And you can go ahead and give us comments and questions, and we pass those straight along to our subject matter experts. So I just wanted to put another little plug in for that.
I'm gonna hop on that one as well because I see we have a question about some of our generation or plans for large scale renewables coming up, and there is more information on OPPD Community Connect about our Power with Purpose projects, and so you can read about potential or future solar development there as well. Also, OPPD.com has a bunch of information about our current generation.
Well, thank you for all of this input. We listen to all of it. We make sure that every single thing that you're saying here is heard. So appreciate all of this feedback. I will turn it back over to our PowerPoint.
Great. Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
And thank you all for that feedback. We'll take that back and have the team evaluate and look and make sure that we don't have any holes. So where are we headed next? Well, today is our first stakeholder workshop on this community and customer stream. And so we're excited to be here today. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. So we've cataloged areas of success, and there's some recommendations out there of opportunities where we could potentially lead and engage. And so to do that, we're going to go back and do a gap analysis of those areas that were cataloged and prioritized. Look at what's happening currently at OPPD and products and services, rebates that are out there, actions that are happening with all our subject matter experts, and look for opportunities and future considerations. We're also evaluating potential pilot projects. So looking at a possibility for agricultural sequestration and collaborating with many community leaders and stakeholders as they too are working towards some of these similar goals. This will all culminate in a transition plan for our future state. How are we planning to operate in the future? We don't want to just look at this once, right? This is something that we'll continue to have conversations on. So what does that look like going forward, and how does it get operationalized with a target completion date of fourth quarter? So I want to thank you all for your time today. That really wraps up the community piece. A big shout out to the team that worked behind the scenes and our partners in HDR to really come up with this fantastic process for walking through evaluating CAPs and finding priorities. So with that, I think I get to turn it over to Jamie so we can have a little more discussion on that.
That's right. Thank you so much. As Sarah mentioned earlier, we love the poll everywhere for the occasional engagement to kind of keep things moving along from a content perspective. But we know sometimes you may want to actually be heard, and we have an option for that. And we have a comment in here that I'll get to in just a moment, but I thought I'd tee it up at least. If you would like to raise your hand, we'd love to hear from you. You can do that in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. There's a little hand there that clicks on that, and it actually virtually raises your hand. And then we can call on you if there's more than one. We can acknowledge those who are on the phone. You can actually raise your hand by pressing *3 if you're solely on the phone, and we'll make sure we clarify who that is. And then we'll unmute you and hopefully address your question. So please don't hesitate to do that. While folks are taking time maybe to prepare their questions, I do have one. It's more of a comment, Emily. It just says that, the Earth grid is magnetic. Magnets are perpetual motion machines of the future for energy generation. Please be open to it. So your comments here and poll everywhere on OPPD Community Connect, please know that those are all taken into consideration. We do appreciate your feedback.
Yep, thank you very much for that comment, and we'll make sure that that also gets forwarded on to our technology exploration team.
Thanks, Em. I'm looking through and I don't see hand raises just yet. You have your Q&A again if we're going through and there's something you want to talk to or get some elaboration on as we go through the conversation. We'll have another opportunity for this hand raise after our friend Paul gets to talk to you about the customer pathway. Oh, I do have a hand raise. All right. Is it Mr. Rennie or Rini? If we could unmute him, Kim, that would be awesome. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi. So I have a background in nuclear power. I did spend 20 years in the Navy. I served on multiple aircraft carriers operating the nuclear power plants. When you talk about decarbonization, it seems like nuclear has left your guys' vocabulary. So I was wondering if there's anything you're doing that you're not telling us to promote nuclear power, because Fort Calhoun, as an example, produced nearly 500 megawatts of energy, clean energy, for over 40 years. So what are we doing to provide nuclear power instead of just solar and wind that doesn't always produce sufficient amounts of energy that are going to still need gas backup to maintain our power grid?
I can take that one for you. So if you remember me from the beginning, I'm Ryan Stiggy. I'm the program manager for decarbonization. So what I would tell you is today, our big focus today is on these customer and community projects, right? And the nuclear piece really falls in our energy portfolio project. And so we've had 4 workshops, actually 5 workshops for that in the past that really stepped through the process we're going through and the technologies that we are evaluating. And so nuclear is a technology that is in the model, right? So we're utilizing the model to really inform kind of what the different pathways that we could take as we go through our decarbonization study, what those look like. So I would encourage you to go back and watch some of those if you haven't. If you have more questions after that, by all means, reach out through OPPD Community Connect, and we can follow up from there.
Okay.
I'd be remiss also on behalf of all of us. Thank you for your service. We appreciate you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
All right. Okay, so you can, if you click the hand again, it lowers your hand, or if you're on the phone and you hit *3, it both raises and lowers your hand. Thanks, sir. At the moment, I think that might be all we have. I think I'll be sure to let you know if I get additional ones, Paul. But why don't we turn it back over to you?
Let me introduce myself and first say good afternoon. I'm Paul Fortney, and my day job is being the manager of product management here at OPPD. And I have the fortunate honor of actually leading the customer work stream. The customer work stream is focused on the development of products, services, and education to help assist our customers reduce their own carbon footprint. This work stream is focused on the near term and helping customers reduce their carbon footprint now. Real quickly on what I'm going to cover today, I'm going to talk a little bit about our goals, deliverables, and the assumptions which governed our work. I want to talk about some processes that we created and tools. I want to review some results of where we've gotten to today. I want to give you some feedback that we've heard from customers today. And we also want to do some more poll anywheres because I'm very interested in getting your thoughts and your opinions. And with that, we're going to start with a couple polls. Sarah.
Very good, Paul. Thank you. And I am back with 2 poll everywheres we're going to do just back to back. So I'm going to flip around my computer, go to the next one, and we are asking our audience, what are your biggest challenges to lowering your carbon footprint as a customer? I want to know, what are your biggest challenges? And again, this is a open-ended question. So as you've been doing all along, you've been giving us such great feedback. Please just type in OPPD 1 to 22333 and you're right there. Convenience, comfort, definitely can be a challenge. And price, that's another one we hear quite a lot. Code, I'm assuming that's probably cost. Access to capital. Lots of good responses here. And I just did want to, I'm going to do another plug. You'll hear me plug OPPD Community Connect a lot, but I'm in the stakeholder engagement team and we really, really value what you say. Right now, we do have a survey going on OPPD Community Connect. You might have seen it while you while you registered, and if you haven't yet, please go ahead and take that survey. We're asking some of these questions of our customers just to kind of like, you know, step into your shoes and understand some of these challenges. And there's quite a lot of questions on the survey. It's great for us to hear from you. So thank you for all of these responses. These are really great. Paul, any thoughts, you know, right off the bat, seeing all these come through?
I was going to say a lot of familiar comments and themes that we've seen from other customers that go along with some of the research that we've done. And as we kind of get into the processes that we've created and where we've come up with some of the product solutions that we're considering, I think they go along very well with some of the things we're hearing from the customers today.
Yeah, these are really great. I'm gonna let it go for another minute or so because these are really great feedback coming in. We're going to have a lot more opportunities to hear from you. I suppose I'll move on to the next one. Easy, simple, affordable switches away from natural gas. Very good. All right, I'll move to the next one. Looking for more feedback. And this is, what role should OPPD play in your mind in helping customers reduce their carbon footprint? So want to hear from you. Like, what would you want OPPD to do to help you? We're kind of putting you on the spot here with all these open-ended questions, but I do appreciate all the thoughtful answers that you're providing us. Really sure does help out. So pay for my home solar.
I don't know about you two, but I also like when you get to see these open-ended questions. A lot of times there'll be polarizing answers at the same topic. So it's also kind of important for us to remember that there is no one straight line to a solution. That I think these comments a lot of times for me reiterate that we have customers of a variety of viewpoints. And that's always been kind of enlightening.
Education, that's a good one.
These are great. Paul, what do you think? Anything, a lot of surprises or things that we've been thinking about, or kind of a little combination of both?
I think there's great suggestions in here. I think that again, as we progress through the presentation, I think customers are going to see some things that we're thinking about that help to address some of these needs and where they think OPPD should play. I think that we're in agreement on many of these items.
These are great. I'm just going to give it a little bit longer, and just another reminder, if this is not the one and done time to talk to us. So if I'm trying to give enough time to give your responses, but if I do move too fast, I don't mean to cut you off. Please make sure to go to OPPD Community Connect and let us know your thoughts. Or, you could always add something in the Q&A or raise your hand at the end. Very good. In interest of time, I think I'll move on and kind of give Paul an opportunity to kind of tell us a little bit about what he's been working on. Go ahead, Paul.
So our initial focus was to create a product strategy and a continuous process focused on evaluating products, which help our customers reduce their carbon footprint and make sure that it helps customers throughout the district. Our key deliverables included a decarb-focused product strategy, an initial prioritized product roadmap, and an acceleration plan. And you can think of an acceleration plan as really just a blueprint to deliver on that roadmap in an accelerated fashion. So think 24 to 36 months. And that acceleration plan would include things like budget and specific resources that would need to be dedicated to those products in order to expedite that delivery. Some of our key assumptions and how we approached our work. First, products need to help customers reduce their carbon footprint, and there needs to be a need for it. Customers need to want that product. We don't want to build products and then have nobody use them. Second, the solutions need to make sense for OPPD and accomplishing its goals and fit with our core competencies and capabilities. Again, it needs to be something that we can deliver and maintain in an easier fashion. We wanted to make sure that all customer segments would be considered. We wanted a well-rounded product mix to assist our customers in all corners of the district. Next, we wanted product ideas that were considered to be well-rounded and consider all aspects of our business and decarbonization. So think things like demand side management, energy efficiency, electrification, customer-owned generation, distributed energy resources, environmental programs, as well as behavioral and rate-based programs. Again, we wanted to make sure that we looked at decarbonization from all angles in order to decide what the best solutions were to bring. We decided that current OPPD products would not be included in our final analysis, as those are already actively being managed to maximize growth and effectiveness. And lastly, and this is important, concepts on our roadmap don't automatically get the green light. They still need to go through our internal processes to make sure that they get prioritization, budget, and resources. Finally, the roadmap is not something that's set in stone. It's not a commitment to build and deliver on each one of them. It's a point in time. It's part of a continuous ongoing analysis. So as the world around us changes, as customer needs change, As our technologies change, as OPPD's core competencies and capabilities change, that roadmap will also continue to evolve. Items might move up and down in terms of the priority on that roadmap. Some items, new items would appear, and some items on that roadmap might disappear from that prioritization. Next slide, please. I now want to talk a little bit about the process we created and then piloted with this work stream. First, I want everyone to know this is not a one and done exercise, but rather our goal was to create an ongoing process and a framework to allow for continuous evaluation of product opportunities to assist our customers with lessening their carbon footprint. Post-strategic initiative, we'll have an assigned owner at OPPD who will continue to use the process to evaluate the changing needs, capabilities, technologies, and trends to ensure that we're making the best investment and use of our resources. The process we created starts with the concept and delivery and discovery phase. It's one where everything is possible. We researched inside and outside the utility industry to understand what others were doing, where technologies were going, and again, what might be possible. We tried to understand customer behaviors and motivations. We brainstormed ideas and evaluated to ensure we were looking at decarbonization from all angles. We wanted to ensure that all customer segments were considered, and we wanted to ensure that there was a broad range of ideas. Again, we wanted to cover all the perspectives to make sure that we were making the right decisions. Next, in the product research phase, we did high-level research on a large list of ideas to figure out, again, what was working in the world around us and if it would work for OPPD. We created a product evaluation criteria to ensure we would have an apple-to-apple comparison of product concepts and a scoring model. The intent of these tools was to allow us to take ideas that have decarbonization in common, but they might be hard to compare objectively. How do you compare residential rebates for HVAC tune-ups to white roof conversions for businesses to mass transit electric vehicle adoption? Those are all really disparate ideas, and we needed a way to evaluate and rank them based upon their comparable merits. After scoring and ranking the ideas in the product research phase, we narrowed the list and we took the top ideas into the customer and product analysis. Here we got more granular, more detailed in our research and evaluation. We used benchmarking data from other utilities to assess market growth, budget, expected carbon savings, and OPPD's ability to build and manage. Again, we created a new evaluation criteria and a different scoring model. Again, this was allow us to compare these ideas and determine which ones had the most promise for OPPD and our customers. The last step in the process was to start gathering customer feedback, engage the interest in our various products. We wanted to figure out, again, not what roadmap we wanted, but the roadmap that was going to work for our customers. Again, the intent here is that this process is going to be continuous and ongoing. Next slide, please. On the last slide, I talked a little bit about gauging our overall customers' sentiment, attitudes, and behaviors, and using that data in that initial concept and discovery phase to create the initial list of product concepts. Again, products need to make sense for OPPD, and they need to make sense for our customers. As a starting point, we looked at recent OPPD customer research, ranging from J.D. Power scores to data we gathered in workshops recently held around EVs and what does green mean to you. And some of the sentiment and those behaviors are listed here, and these are the highlights. We heard that residential customers want and have a desire to positively impact the environment. They also want to save on their utility bills, but they don't necessarily know where to start or where to find reliable information. They felt they had a role to play as individuals, and they also believe that corporations need to take responsibility for the environment. But a lower percentage thought that their utilities carried the most responsibility to improve the environment. Our commercial and industrial customers felt a little bit different about the role that OPPD could play. They look for OPPD to be more of a partner and help with those solutions, in part because the solutions that they see out there are large, complicated, and daunting, and they really are having difficulties trying to navigate what might work for them and how to start those solutions. So they really want to partner with OPPD. Sarah?
Thank you, Paul. We have another poll everywhere question. And for this one, it's a multiple choice. Just kind of want to get the kind of what you guys are thinking, what you're doing right now. Which of the following have you done in an effort to reduce your carbon footprint in your home? Have you recycled large appliances, used home weatherization items, solar power at home, bought or leased an all-electric vehicle, bought or leased a hybrid gas electric vehicle, used electric yard work tools, conducted a home energy audit, convert to LED lighting? That looks like a popular one. Other or none of the above? Seems like everyone here is doing something and a lot of variety of things. And I think you can do more than one answer on this too, if you do have a couple of these as well. So a lot of LED lighting, yard work, tools, home weatherization. I just did that with my doors here at home last year, I think. What do you think, Paul? A little bit of everything we're seeing.
Absolutely. And I think that goes to, it's not one size fits all, right? Everybody has things that are important to them or make sense for them in their daily lives, which is again why we built the process and tried to create criteria and scoring so that we could take ideas that I might have a bias for or make sense to me, but might not make sense to you because you have different needs. And so how do we weigh that across our entire customer base to figure out where we put our investments initially?
That's good
I might
feed.
jump in here right now for you guys.
Go ahead, Jamie.
We did have a clarifying question about a statement made, the product needs to make sense to OPPD. And I can start with that. And if Paul, if you want to elaborate, we can. I just wanted to speak to the fact about how our products are regularly reviewed. And we're always looking for enhancements and optimizations for our customers and for us. So while maybe not included in this project's team's efforts, we do work to ensure our current state programs are successful and managed on an ongoing basis by our team of product specialists. But we're always looking to improve. We're always looking to enhance and optimize.
Yeah, I'll jump in as well. David, thanks for the question. And your question about, products need to make sense for OPPD and what does that mean exactly? First and foremost, I say we have to have the technology and the capabilities to support it. If we wanted to roll out something like a time of use rate, right? We need to have smart meter technology in order to support that, right? So if OPPD doesn't have the right infrastructure to do that, then there are products and services that might make sense to everybody, in general, but again, OPPD can't support it. Earlier I saw somebody said that, OPPD should pay to put solar panels on everybody's home, and that would be great. And I'd be one of the first ones to sign up for that as well, right? But, from a going concern perspective, being able to afford that and how would we do that might not make sense for OPPD, right? When we have incentives for energy efficiency, et cetera, we have to weigh the benefit to the company that we get from that energy efficiency against what we're giving to the customer and from an incentive standpoint. So there's something that has to go into that ROI. So it has to make sense. Again, customers need to want it, but it also has to make sense from an economic standpoint, from a utility standpoint, from a capability standpoint for OPPD to be able to launch those products. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, I think that was super helpful. And maybe you could speak to this one. If not, we can get some elaboration. But is there an online resource that shows all of the rebates resources that OPPD can provide for customers and homeowners on our web?
Yes, absolutely. If you go to oppd.com, there is a products tab. And if you go through there, it lists the products that are available, those that are directed towards our residential customers and those that are also directed towards our business and commercial customers as well.
Thanks so much.
Jamie, I think I'll go ahead and move it back to Paul. To your next slide, Paul.
All right. So this slide is intended to give you a little insight into the evaluation and scoring criteria we used in our initial evaluation and our second, more detailed evaluation. The scoring criteria within each phase was not only to help us prioritize the opportunities, but also take the emotion out of that decision and have scoring driven by facts and data versus what somebody likes or what we think customers might want. The goal was to have consistent research and data points across each product concept to allow us to have a fair comparison and score it based upon the merits of that particular idea. The key components of phase one evaluation included understanding if there was a good product market fit on our customers and OPPD's goals. And we really looked at a 3 to 5 year view of the products, weighing risk of OPPD pursuing, and whether or not there were budget or technology constraints or limitations. And then obviously we wanted to understand what the carbon reduction for each opportunity would be. In phase two, we took the best scoring ideas from phase one, and then we got a lot more granular and a lot more exact on our evaluations. We identified the potential product designs. We benchmarked similar products at other utilities. We used their experience to evaluate product scale, market penetration, and to calculate carbon savings. Another key was understanding implementation resource requirements, as well as our annual run budgets required to run each product. And Sarah, I think we're gonna ask a couple more polls.
Yeah, very good. One moment. Okay. All right, and this is another brainstorming session, so I'm hoping to pick your brain here just a minute. When thinking about what OPPD should prioritize to potentially help you reduce your carbon footprint, we want to know from you, what do you think would be the products and services that would be the most helpful? Let us know by texting OPPD1 to 22333. Again, this is an open-ended question, so we just would appreciate your brainstorm to see kind of what products and services you think would be most helpful. Give people a moment to gather their thoughts.
Waiting for the responses.
I know this is, like I said, we need the music. Rebates, time of use billing, financing.
All great suggestions, and I think things we're going to talk about here very quickly.
Yeah. Removing EV rebates. Pays on bill financing, energy savings upgrades. EVs seem to get mentioned quite a bit in this presentation. Assistance with reduced fees or rebates on installing solar power and batteries for household electricity.
Great suggestions. Keep them coming.
Yep, keep them coming. Lots of talk about solar, Paul. Does that surprise you?
Not at all. Not at all.
Education, I'm seeing a lot too, so that's really good to know. More education, more EVs.
Load shifting appliances to electrification. Another great idea.
These are all really good. Nuclear comes up again. And I do want to put another plug in. If you haven't taken the survey, that's on OPPD Community Connect. That survey is going to be running through the 12th of September. And you could find it on the same place where you found this meeting. I do encourage all of you to take that survey if you haven't already yet, because it'll be more opportunities to give us some good feedback like this. Some battery storage conversations, ground source heat pumps, more nuclear. Lots of good stuff coming in here. Well, I think I might move on to the next one. And again, like I said, there's opportunities to continue to talk to us on OPPD Community Connect. I just always feel bad if I'm cutting someone off here, but we do want to make sure that we have time to get to the next question. So I think I will move on to the next one. So this is our last poll everywhere question, and it's a multiple choice. And we kind of wanted you to think sort of in categories a little bit here. Which category for reducing your carbon footprint do you think is most important? So the categories we have listed here are energy efficiency, customer-owned generation and distributed energy resources. We have electrification. We talked about electric vehicles, yard equipment, lowering the overall peak load for OPPD, the demand reduction. There's that education. I know some of you guys had mentioned education. That's E, or environmental programs like composting or planting trees. So let us know. We're just kind of curious of these categories, now placing some of these product ideas in categories. What do you think is important? And it looks like we're kind of all over the board, Paul.
Again, I'm going to repeat myself, but it's not one size fits all, right? Everybody has something that appeals to them, fits in their budget, works with their lifestyle, is important to them, which again is why we created the processes that we created, right? We can't build all the products at once. We'd love to be able to do it, but we needed a way to be able to figure out what's resonating with our customers as an entire customer base, and where do we place those resources and roll them out over time so that we can help the most people at least begin that journey on reducing their carbon footprint.
Very good. And absolutely we've got responses for everything. So with that, I'm going to flip it back to you, Paul, to round us off here in the PowerPoint. Go for it.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the highlights of the research that we did, and then we're going to move into kind of some of the results of what we've heard from customers in our survey. So I think you're going to see some familiar things with what you guys have been commenting throughout this presentation. As I mentioned, on the previous slide, phase one was high level, given the large number of concepts that we had to evaluate and score. We still wanted to do some industry benchmarking, and really it was focused around product designs in order to identify what successful programs look like. Our focus was on covering a wide range of ideas to ensure all customer segments were considered. Here's just a sample of some of those product ideas in phase one that we looked at. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of a flavor for the ideas that we explored in kind of that broad range. We had 228 concepts that we did research on and put through our scoring model. We looked at everything from net zero construction to white roof conversion, fuel cells, composting, solar coins, solar and battery storage, heat recovery systems. So again, we tried to look at all the different categories of decarbonization that were out there. We tried to think about all the different customer segments that we have throughout the district and the service territory, and make sure that we were looking at products, again, that would come from all angles and help all of our customers. In phase two, as I mentioned, we got a lot more granular, and we really created a mini white paper on each one of the products we evaluated. The final roadmap is still being prioritized. We recently completed a residential survey to help us understand, again, what ideas resonate with our customers. We're launching a similar survey with our commercial and industrial customers next week. And Sarah mentioned that we have an open survey today on OPPD Community Connect. So if you want to give us some more input, please take that survey as well. Again, we're going to use all the ideas from these surveys as well as the input you've given us today to help us determine what that final roadmap looks like and at least the initial path forward. The top 10 scoring items from phase 2 are listed below, and they're not in any particular order. The products we believe have scale from our research and our benchmarking. One of our initial motivations was to create some initial products that could get as many customers involved as possible to really get them thinking about how they could reduce their carbon footprint. Next slide, please. Next, I want to talk a little bit about product enablers. And earlier in one of the polls, we were asking you about how OPPD can help, what kind of products, what kind of services. I saw mentions of smart meter technology. I saw several comments about on-bill financing. And this is really where that kind of fits in. Product enablers are not products per se, but they're capabilities or system functions that help increase adoption of products, or in some cases enable us to be able to offer a product at all. Product enablers will be outlined in our strategy, but they're not part of our roadmap because they're not considered products. This slide lists examples of enablers that the team feels are needed now or will be needed in the future to grow and scale many of the products that were included in our analysis. And I'm going to talk to just a couple of those. If you look at the top 10 products from phase 2, you didn't see anything that was rate-based. That's not because, and really that's because in order to have effective behavioral rate-based programs, you need to have smart meter technology. Smart meter technology would allow OPPD to have two-way real-time communication with our customers' meters. This type of functionality would allow OPPD to design rate structures to encourage or discourage use, leading to energy reduction or shifting usage to off-peak times, with an overall impact of lowering carbon. AMI can also be used to give real-time feedback to customers so they can tell if recent behavioral changes maybe they've implemented or energy efficiency measures that they may have taken to see if they're actually working. Again, we're trying to reinforce that behavior. So again, if they've made a change and it's working, you want to be able to communicate to those customers real time to let them know that's working and continue that behavior. AMI can also even be used to provide customers with specific ideas on how they can reduce their energy usage based upon specifics within their home and how they use energy. So AMI is being looked at and thought of at OPPD in our grid modernization strategic initiative. And it's being considered there. I have it listed on this slide as probably something that we're hoping to maybe have in the next 2 to 5 years. But again, it's a product enabler that would certainly allow us to do stuff in the rate area that we're not necessarily able to do today. On-bill financing is another great idea. It's something that's slated for us to take a look at in the product development team next year. On-bill financing really can help you jumpstart energy efficiency and customer-owned generation. For example, on-bill financing will allow customers to make weatherization upgrades to their homes and then actually fund those upgrades using the savings that they achieve. This would allow for home upgrades and energy efficiency with little or no out-of-pocket expense. Again, when we looked at some of the initial poll anywheres about what are you guys looking for? What are some of the obstacles that you have? Cost was one of those things that was listed a lot of times. Something like on-bill financing, again, takes away that cost or that decision to say, maybe I have some funds, but where am I going to put those? What's best for my family? And will allow you to do that with little out-of-pocket expense, like I said. The last one that I want to touch on real quickly is that around customer education. We know customers want to decrease their carbon footprint and they want to conserve energy. They'd like to lower their energy bills as well, but they don't necessarily know where to start or they don't know what sources of information they can trust. And OPPD feels like we can play that role. We certainly do today support education. We're continuing to roll out more functionality as well as more programs. Over the last couple of years, we rolled out new energy efficiency page as well as customer-owned generation pages on OPPD.com. They're packed with videos, tips, calculators, again, to help customers think of ideas and start taking those steps to reduce energy, or even understand that if they do want to put, say, solar panels on their home, you know, what does the return on investment look like, and how can they kind of plan for that from a neutral party without, you know, that they can bounce maybe ideas that they're hearing from vendors or things that they're reading out there. Just this last year, we piloted a program aimed at high schoolers to discuss the benefits of electric vehicles in partnership with the National Energy Foundation. And we're looking at other ways that we can partner with our customers and educate them and help them to reduce their carbon footprint going forward. Next slide, please. So earlier we talked about the fact that we just wrapped up a residential survey, and the next two slides have some of the results of what we found from that survey, and I'd like to kind of just review that with you real quickly. Early in the presentation, I talked about some of the customer behaviors and attitudes that we pulled from prior engagement with our customers. And I think what we found out with this most recent survey is that many of those things that we thought were true when we started that initial list of product ideas held true when we just did this last survey. And that's around one, that OPPD definitely has a role to play in educating customers and kind of being that source of truth around energy efficiency and decarbonization and what customers can do in that journey, their personal journey. Second, customers feel strongly that OPPD needs to incent customers to take those actions and start doing some of those steps. And then lastly, you know, we can do a better job. We can do a better job in educating, and we need to do a better job in leading by example with our own carbon mix. Next slide, please. So this is also some results from that same residential study. We provided customers with the following list of 17 product concepts, and we asked them to tell us which idea was most important to them and which idea was least important to them. And this slide shows the results of that question. You'll notice that every concept received votes for being the most important, and every concept received votes for being the least important. And while there were several ideas that seemed to be more popular than others, every idea had some level of support. You know, I use this slide to support why we created the evaluation criteria and the scoring models in our process. Everyone has an opinion, including us. So we needed a way to remove the personal preferences and bias and use data to make a more informed decision about preferences, scale, and expected impact. The fact that every idea received some customer support also leads credence that the ideas that we had in phase 2 all had some merit. I do want to caution you not to read too much into the rank order and the overall score, as the participants didn't have a lot of definition of what each one of these meant and did not know what the exact product design would actually look like. Lastly, we're going to use these results along with the survey that we have going on Community Connect and the survey we're going to kick off next week with our commercial customers to inform that final roadmap. We want to take your thoughts and your preferences and go back and look at some of the assumptions we made in our evaluations to make sure that not only do we have the right mix of products, but we put them in the right order as well in that prioritized roadmap. Next slide, please. My final slide really just talks about where we are in the work stream and our next steps. We're continuing that market research and getting feedback from our customers about their thoughts and what OPPD should do to help them reduce their carbon footprint. Obviously, the stakeholder workshop is what we're doing right now. We're finalizing and working on that acceleration plan on how we can deliver some of those faster and what that might look like, so we can inform management. We're working on our strategy, and then we're going to operationalize the processes that we created and find ownership at OPPD. So again, this isn't a one and done. It's an ongoing, continuous process to deliver products in the future.
All right, we're back to the portion where we want to engage you a little bit more. And I think we just had a clarifying question. While I'm looking for some hand raises, could you maybe clarify in that previous slide about fourth quarter? We just had a question from one of the attendees. Can we go back one, Sarah? Thanks.
There you go.
I'm assuming it's regarding target completion, but maybe if the questioner wants to raise a hand to clarify if I'm mistaken, but early fourth quarter, is that 2021 or 2022, Paul?
Of this year. So
Okay.
we're looking to wrap up our work stream early fourth quarter.
Perfect. Thanks for clarifying. Okay, everyone. Thanks, Sarah, for going back. We're to the Q&A portion where if you have a question, you can raise your hand, *3 on the phone. Both raises and lowers your hand, or you can click on the little hand in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. I'm going to peruse this. Had a pretty steady flow of questions as we've been going. I won't assume we've gotten to everyone. Do we have anyone who would like to be addressed, and we can take you off mute? And I'll say we'll keep an eye on this, and even if we move on to the next step slide, we can keep a close eye on that. We won't shut the door right away. But as of right now, doesn't look like we have any hand raises and no Q&A at the moment.
Well, I can go on to explain the next steps real quick. In case some of these next steps may be a more preferred way to ask questions, but again, please, while I'm going through this, continue to add your Q&As on your computer screen or raise your hand. We'd love to take your questions tonight if you have any. But we're committed to continued stakeholder engagement and feedback. So, one of the things we want to know is how do we do today with this engagement session. So after this meeting, you should get a safe pop-up on your computer that will be a survey that will link to SurveyMonkey that we'd love to get your input on how we did today. It'll also be in your email. You'll get a thank you email from us with that survey link. So if you could please take your few minutes to fill out that survey. We do read every single comment and take all of your feedback to heart as we're planning our next engagement. As you remember, we also have talked about the energy portfolio work stream quite a bit during this presentation. And we've had 4 workshops and an interim modeling update so far with that work stream. And then the workshop 5 and 6 are planned for yet this year. So the best thing to do is to keep an eye on OPPD Community Connect. That's where we'll post all of our updates when we have times and dates for that. If you are following OPPD Community Connect, if you're registered, we do send out emails through the platform as well to let you keep you updated of things that we have going on through this Pathways Decarbonization project. And since you're here today, we'll probably have your email as well, and you'll probably get an email from us telling you about upcoming workshops through Pathways to Decarbonization if that's something you're interested in. I've talked about OPPD Community Connect a lot, but do know that we'll post a recording of this workshop to that platform after this meeting. We will have comments and questions and answers available through that platform as well, and we welcome all of those. And I've talked about the survey as has Paul several times. That survey is on OPPD Community Connect to do with a customer pathway workstream, and that survey will be open through September 12th. So if you haven't taken it already, please do so. And if you have friends or colleagues, family who also might be interested in letting us know your thoughts, please share that with everyone. That you know. We'd love to hear the more the merrier. If you do represent an organization that you'd like to have someone from OPPD talk to your organization, please go to oppd.com/speakersbureau. We'll love to talk to your group individually as well. Next update, we plan to speak with the board of directors in October about Pathways Decarbonization, but the best way really to find out what's next, again, is go to OPPD Community Connect. There's timelines for each of the projects on there, and we will be posting any sorts of updates on that platform. And again, it's an opportunity for you to give us additional feedback on that platform. So lots of plugs to that as well. And I guess I can switch it back to you, Jamie. Did we get any questions? Did we get any hand raises as I was going through those next steps?
I don't see any hand raises. One just was mentioning about the recording, if that's available in the PDF, and that's been addressed, as you mentioned, on OPPD Community Connect is the best place to find all of that information post-event. And then we got a compliment. Thanks so much. Just mentioning that there were speakers from OPPD for Green Bellevue, and they did a great job with their presentation. So thanks so much for that. We appreciate that. At the time, no additional questions or hand raises, Sarah.
All right. Well, you can still leave your feedback to us. I won't say the website again because I feel like I've said it a lot. It's right here on your screen. So please don't be a stranger. Stay in touch with us. We'll stay in touch with you and keep you updated with our next steps. So thank you so much for coming today, and we look forward to seeing you at a future workshop or meeting.